I need to check your bag. Go ahead. All right. Open. Nothing. Security camera footage would later reveal the precise events of that Wednesday morning at 6:47 a.m. A professionally attired black woman, appearing to be in her late 40s, traversed the airport terminal while maneuvering her small suitcase. She was wearing a navy blue blazer over a cream blouse and carried herself with a dignified composure. Officer Greg Palmer noticed her from across the terminal, and a visibly perceptible shift occurred in his demeanor. He began walking towards her with a clear intention, his hand already moving towards his belt. What this officer remained unaware of was that he had just committed the gravest error of his entire professional life. An error that would result in the forfeiture of all his accumulated achievements and bring to light a pattern of conduct that had remained concealed for an excessively prolonged duration. Before we proceed, I would be interested to learn your location while viewing this. Please share your country or city in the comments section below. And if you are new to this platform, kindly subscribe. This narrative escalates further in intensity, and you will not wish to miss the unfolding events. Monica Freeman had served as a judge for 8 years. Prior to that appointment, she dedicated 12 years as a prosecutor, incarcerating some of the state's most dangerous offenders. She had encountered a wide spectrum of individuals, including murderers, thieves, corrupt officials, and individuals of every deceptive nature. Her command of legal statutes was comprehensive, and her understanding of her rights surpassed that of most legal practitioners. She was unequivocally astute in recognizing infringements upon those rights. On that particular morning, she was en route to a conference in a different state, scheduled to deliver a discourse on the principle of equity within the judicial framework. The intrinsic irony of her impending experience would not be lost on anyone who later learns of this account. Officer Palmer approached her in the vicinity of Gate 14. Without appropriate self-identification or explanation of his intentions, he instructed her to halt. Monica complied, exhibiting both confusion and composure. She inquired if there was an issue. He did not directly address her question. Instead, he asked her destination. She informed him she was boarding a flight, similar to every other individual present in the airport. He requested to see her ticket. She produced her phone and displayed her digital boarding pass. He gave it only a cursory glance. Subsequently, he asked for her identification. Monica reached into her purse and presented her driver's license. He scrutinized it for an extended period, exceeding what was necessary. He inquired about her point of origin. She stated she had just arrived at the airport from her residence. He asked for her home address. She responded courteously, though she was beginning to comprehend the situation. Other passengers proceeded past them without impediment. A young Caucasian male in sweatpants and a hoodie passed by the officer without any notice. An elderly Caucasian woman, laden with 3 substantial bags, navigated past, and the officer offered neither assistance nor interrogation. Monica observed these occurrences. She had cultivated a habit of meticulous observation, an integral component of her professional responsibilities. Officer Palmer then asked Monica about her occupation. This query lacked any justifiable security rationale, a fact she recognized, yet she responded nonetheless. She simply stated she was employed in the legal field. He pressed for clarification on the specific area of law. She replied, criminal law. He made a facial expression suggesting disbelief. He then requested her to step aside, indicating a need to search her bag. Monica was aware that random bag inspections occurred at airports. However, she recognized this was not random. She was being subjected to profiling, and this realization intensified with each passing moment. Nevertheless, she had nothing to conceal. Consequently, she moved aside with him. She deemed it more prudent to cooperate and meticulously document all details rather than provide him with any pretext for escalation. He proceeded to open her small suitcase in the terminal itself. He removed her clothing item by item, including her undergarments, sleepwear, and toiletry bag. He arranged these items on a nearby bench, visible to all passers-by. Other passengers paused to observe. Some displayed expressions of sympathy, while others averted their gaze swiftly, seemingly embarrassed on her behalf. Monica remained standing with her hands clasped, her countenance serene, yet inwardly seething with anger. A quick question for our audience. Have you or someone you know ever encountered a similar situation? Please type yes if you have. He continued his inspection of her toiletry bag, opening her cosmetics and unscrewing the caps of her small bottles of lotion and perfume. He squeezed her tube of toothpaste. His actions were meticulously thorough in a manner that felt deeply personal, as if his intent was to humiliate her. Perhaps that was indeed his objective. He discovered nothing, as anticipated. No weapons, no illicit substances, nothing even remotely questionable. Merely the typical possessions of a professional woman undertaking a 3-day business excursion. However, Officer Palmer's search was not concluded. He informed her that he needed to examine her purse. She relinquished it to him. He proceeded to empty its contents onto the bench alongside her clothing, her wallet, keys, phone charger, makeup kit, a book she was reading, several receipts, a pack of gum, hand sanitizer, and a small notebook utilized for her professional notations were revealed. He picked up the notebook and began turning its pages. This action constituted a further transgression. Her work-related notes could potentially contain confidential information. She firmly yet politely informed him that the notebook held privileged legal material and that he had no authority to peruse its contents. He disregarded her statement. He continued to leaf through the pages, taking his time. Monica retrieved her phone and initiated a recording. The instant she raised her phone, Officer Palmer's entire demeanor shifted. He instructed her to put the phone away. She calmly stated her right to document a public official executing their duties in a public setting. He moved closer to her, infringing upon her personal space. He reiterated his command to put the phone away. She did not comply, continuing her recording. At this juncture, his partner, Officer Linda Chavez, approached. Officer Chavez inquired about the unfolding situation. Palmer articulated that he was conducting a routine security check. Chavez surveyed the items scattered on the bench, observed Monica holding her phone aloft, and seemed to perceive that something was amiss. She questioned Palmer regarding his selection of this specific traveler for screening. He asserted it was a random selection. Chavez glanced around at the other passengers, who were not undergoing screening, raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. Monica addressed Officer Chavez directly. She stated she was being subjected to racial profiling and harassment. She detailed her compliance with every request, her presentation of identification and boarding pass, and the absence of any illicit findings during the bag search. She requested Officer Palmer's badge number and the designation of his supervisor. She conveyed this information in her characteristic calm, clear voice, the same tone she employed in her courtroom when delivering rulings that would irrevocably alter lives. Officer Palmer reacted unfavorably to this development. He accused her of being disruptive. She was not being disruptive. She remained stationary, spoke in a normal tone, and was merely advocating for herself. However, Palmer appeared to require a justification. He informed her that failure to calm down would result in her removal from the airport. She responded that she was entirely composed and repeated her request for his badge number. He reached for her arm. This represented his second most significant error of the day, immediately following his initial decision to target her. The moment his hand made contact with her arm, Monica explicitly stated that she did not consent to being touched and that she was not under arrest. She demanded to know the grounds for her detention. He declared she was being detained for suspicious behavior. She requested a specific elaboration on what constituted the suspicious behavior. He was unable to provide a direct response. Officer Chavez appeared increasingly uneasy. She subtly suggested to Palmer that perhaps they should contact a supervisor. Palmer responded with an indignant glare. He had now become too deeply entrenched in the situation, too committed to the course he had set. He informed Monica that she needed to accompany him to the security office for further screening. Monica inquired if she was being arrested. He replied in the negative. She asked if she was free to leave. He stated no. She pointed out the inconsistency in his assertions. A small crowd had now congregated, observing the scene, with some individuals recording on their own devices. Such airport occurrences tend to attract attention. Palmer seemed to recognize this and reacted negatively. He raised his voice, instructing everyone to disperse. The majority did not move, sensing an injustice and believing their presence might offer protection to the woman from whatever actions the officer intended. Monica missed her flight, understandably. By the time Palmer finally relented and permitted her departure, and after a supervisor had arrived and promptly assessed the situation, her flight had already departed. The supervisor, a seemingly weary gentleman in his 50s, extended an apology to Monica. He offered to facilitate her rebooking, but Monica expressed no interest in his apologies. She requested his name and employee identification number. She also sought Officer Palmer's complete details. Furthermore, she asked for the contact information for the Airport Police Department's Internal Affairs Division and their Civilian Complaint Review Board. She also requested the names and contact details of all witnesses who had paused to observe the incident. The supervisor's demeanor shifted from apologetic to defensive. He maintained that Palmer was acting in accordance with his duties. Monica offered a smile for the first time since the ordeal commenced, but it was not a pleasant expression. She stated she looked forward to providing a detailed explanation in federal court regarding her assessment of Officer Palmer's professional conduct. She withheld the information that she was a judge, at least for the time being. She wished to observe how they would handle a complaint from an individual they presumed to be an ordinary citizen, lacking any influence. She aimed to ascertain if they would accord her complaint serious consideration, conduct a proper investigation, and hold Palmer accountable, or if they would collectively defend their colleague and protect their own. She harbored a strong suspicion regarding the likely outcome. What do you surmise occurred after she lodged the complaint? Do you believe her concerns were taken seriously? Monica proceeded to rebook her flight for later that afternoon. She retreated to a secluded area of the airport and spent the subsequent 2 hours meticulously documenting all that had transpired. Every detail she could recall was committed to paper, with exact timings derived from her phone's timestamp of when she initiated recording. She recorded the names and contact numbers she had gathered. Her video recording was uploaded to cloud storage and subsequently emailed to herself across 3 distinct email accounts. She was acutely aware of how evidence could inexplicably vanish. Upon reaching her conference that evening, she delivered her scheduled speech. However, she now possessed a poignant, personal anecdote to incorporate into her discourse on systemic injustice. The audience was taken aback. A number of legal practitioners approached her afterward, extending offers of assistance. She expressed her gratitude, but indicated she had a different course of action planned. The following week, upon returning home, Monica lodged a formal grievance with the Airport Police Department. Her submission included her written declaration, the video evidence, and the contact details of 17 individuals who had provided their information as potential witnesses. She dispatched copies to the local news outlets, the state aviation regulatory body, and the Federal Transportation Department. Additionally, she forwarded a copy to the state's preeminent civil rights law firm, accompanied by a letter expressing her intent to pursue legal recourse. The police department's reply arrived 3 weeks later. It was a standardized letter acknowledging receipt of her complaint and stating that the matter had been investigated and resolved internally. The communication offered no specifics, no admission of fault, and no clarification as to what resolved internally entailed. The letter bore the signature of an individual from Human Resources whose name was unfamiliar to her. This outcome was precisely as Monica had anticipated. It was at this juncture that she revealed her identity. She convened a press conference. Clad in her judge's robe, she sat at a table with her legal counsel, Rebecca Okonkwo, a formidable civil rights attorney renowned for securing multi-million-dollar settlements from police departments nationwide. Monica recounted her experience in exhaustive detail. She presented excerpts from her video recording. Subsequently, she announced her intention to file a federal lawsuit against Officer Greg Palmer and Officer Linda Chavez for failing to intervene, the supervisor for his insufficient response, and the Airport Police Department for fostering an environment that perpetuated racial profiling. The narrative gained widespread traction. Initially reported by local news, it soon expanded to regional and then national coverage. A judge had been subjected to profiling and public humiliation at an airport. The video evidence was irrefutable, crystal clear, and damning. There was no conceivable way to misrepresent the situation or claim it was taken out of context. The footage spoke for itself. Officer Palmer's history came to light shortly thereafter. Monica's legal team served a subpoena for his personnel file. It emerged that he had 7 prior complaints lodged against him for racial profiling. 7. All concerning black and brown travelers. Each complaint had either been dismissed or resulted in minimal disciplinary action, such as a written warning. One complaint originated from a black military officer in uniform returning from deployment. Another came from a black physician en route to perform emergency surgery. Palmer had targeted all of them, and the department had consistently shielded him. The Airport Police Department issued a statement asserting that they were taking the allegations seriously and conducting a comprehensive review. Palmer was placed on paid administrative leave. This action further fueled public outrage. Why was he receiving paid time off while the judge he had humiliated was compelled to retain legal counsel and relive her ordeal? Additional victims began to emerge. Following the news coverage, individuals who had been subjected to unwarranted stops and searches by Palmer found their voices. Over the subsequent 2 months, the legal team collected statements from 43 individuals. These 43 people described a consistent pattern of behavior. Palmer would identify a black or brown individual, particularly those who were well-dressed or appeared successful, and subject them to searches. It appeared he harbored an intolerance for people of color who were thriving, and felt compelled to assert his dominance and remind them of his authority. One woman recounted how Palmer's actions caused her to miss her father's funeral. Another described being detained for such an extended period that she forfeited a job interview for which she had prepared for months. A university student stated that Palmer had rummaged through his belongings, making disparaging remarks about the authenticity of his designer clothing, implying he must have stolen them. The accounts continued with unwavering regularity. The lawsuit proceeded. The airport police department sought its dismissal. The federal judge presiding over the case, not Monica herself, denied this request. The discovery phase commenced. Monica's legal team requested documents, electronic communications, training records, and complaint files. They deposed Palmer, whose performance on the stand was notably poor. He exhibited defensiveness and aggression, failing to provide satisfactory explanations for why he had stopped Monica and thoroughly searched her possessions. His attorney attempted to argue that Palmer had acted in accordance with his training and instincts. Monica's legal counsel requested specific behavioral markers from Monica that justified such intense scrutiny. Palmer asserted that she appeared nervous. The attorney then played the video, which clearly depicted Monica exhibiting complete composure. Palmer then stated that her traveling with minimal luggage was suspicious. The attorney countered by pointing out that, for a 3-day trip, her luggage was entirely appropriate. Palmer then alluded to her travel route as suspicious. The attorney noted that she was flying from her home city to a major metropolitan area for a well-documented legal conference, indicating nothing inherently suspicious about her itinerary. One might question whether Palmer genuinely believed he had committed no transgression, or if he was fully cognizant of his actions. The trial commenced 11 months after the initial incident and spanned 8 days. The courtroom was filled to capacity each day. News crews lined the exterior. Monica testified for 4 hours. She remained composed, provided intricate details, and presented as credible. She eschewed exaggeration or dramatization, instead simply articulating the truth of the events and their emotional impact. She spoke of the humiliation of having her undergarments openly displayed on a bench, the violation of having her personal effects indiscriminately sifted through, the fear she experienced when Palmer grasped her arm, uncertain of the extent to which he might escalate the situation, the frustration of missing her flight and nearly missing her scheduled speaking engagement, and the profound distress of being treated as a criminal in her own country, solely based on her race. Witness after witness provided testimony detailing their encounters with Palmer. The pattern of his behavior was unequivocally established. The jury heard from airport employees who admitted to observing Palmer's conduct, but abstained from reporting it due to fear of reprisal. They also heard from a former airport police officer who had resigned specifically due to his disgust with the department's tolerance of racial profiling. An expert in implicit bias and police conduct testified that Palmer's actions aligned perfectly with the established pattern of racial profiling. A statistician presented data demonstrating that Palmer had searched black passengers at a rate 17 times higher than white passengers, despite discovering contraband at a similarly low rate across all racial demographics. This evidence underscored that his targeting of black travelers was not an effective security measure, but rather an act of racism. Palmer's defense team endeavored to portray him as a dedicated officer performing a demanding role. They presented character witnesses who described him as a good person, but their accounts were irreconcilable with the presented evidence. Good individuals do not inflict humiliation upon innocent people. Good individuals do not disregard 7 complaints and persist in the same behavior. Good individuals do not physically grab a woman's arm when she politely requests a badge number. Officer Chavez testified that she felt uneasy during the incident, but was uncertain of how to proceed. She mentioned suggesting the involvement of a supervisor, but Palmer reportedly refused. She conceded that she ought to have taken more decisive action to halt the proceedings. Her testimony actually bolstered Monica's case by demonstrating that even Palmer's partner recognized that the situation was amiss. The supervisor, who eventually intervened, attempted to justify the department's complaint resolution process. Monica's attorney inquired why a judge's complaint had elicited merely a form letter response. He offered no satisfactory explanation. The lawyer then questioned why Palmer had been permitted to continue his duties despite 7 prior complaints. He vaguely referred to progressive discipline and due process. The lawyer posed the question of whether the department would have exhibited the same leniency with 7 complaints against a black officer. The supervisor remained silent. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning a verdict in favor of Monica on every count. They determined that Palmer had infringed upon her civil rights through racial profiling and unlawful detention. They found that Chavez had failed in her obligation to intervene. They concluded that the supervisor had been negligent in his response. Crucially, they determined that the airport police department had maintained policies and a culture that facilitated unchecked racial profiling. The compensatory damages awarded surprised everyone. The jury granted Monica $200,000 for pain and suffering. Subsequently, they awarded her $4.8 million in punitive damages, intended to penalize the defendants and deter future misconduct. The total amount reached $5 million. This sum represented compensation for a security stop that had lasted approximately 40 minutes. However, the financial aspect was secondary to the underlying message. The airport police department naturally appealed, arguing that the punitive damages were excessive. The appellate court disagreed. The judges on the appellate panel observed that the department had overlooked 7 prior complaints against the same officer, thereby establishing a pattern of deliberate indifference to constitutional rights. The awarded damages were upheld in their entirety, yet the financial compensation was merely the initial consequence. The true retribution extended far beyond the monetary award. Officer Greg Palmer was terminated 3 days following the verdict. His police certification was revoked, meaning he would be permanently barred from law enforcement. At 47 years old, having dedicated his entire adult life to being a cop, he now faced the daunting task of forging a new career. He would also have to confront every potential employer with the reasons for his dismissal and explain the media coverage surrounding his case. Officer Chavez was suspended for 6 months without pay and demoted. She eventually resigned from the force and, according to the latest information, is now employed in private security, earning less and burdened by the knowledge that she failed to act rightly when it counted. The supervisor retired earlier than anticipated, quietly and without the customary farewell for long-term employees. His reputation was in tatters. While his pension remained intact, his legacy was irrevocably defined by his failure to address Palmer's evident pattern of misconduct. The entire airport police department fell under federal oversight. A consent decree mandated the implementation of new training on racial bias, the establishment of a genuine complaint investigation system with civilian oversight, and a 5-year period of monitoring by an independent expert. Henceforth, every racial profiling complaint would be investigated by external parties, with the findings made public. 17 officers were investigated based on evidence that emerged during Monica's trial. 8 of them were terminated. 4 received suspensions. The remainder were issued formal disciplinary actions placed in their permanent records. The department's leadership was overhauled. The chief retired. 2 assistant chiefs were demoted or reassigned, but Monica's pursuit of justice was not yet complete. She allocated her portion of the settlement to establish a legal fund dedicated to assisting victims of airport racial profiling. This fund provided pro bono legal representation to individuals who believed they had been targeted due to their race. Within its first year, the fund initiated 32 cases. 11 concluded with settlements. 4 proceeded to trial, all resulting in favorable verdicts. The fund also advocated for legislative reform. Monica testified before her state legislature regarding the necessity of enhanced oversight for airport security personnel. She addressed congressional committees concerning the federally recognized issue. Legislation was amended, policies were updated, training improved, at least in some jurisdictions. Palmer attempted to sue Monica for defamation. His lawsuit was promptly dismissed. Truth serves as an absolute defense against defamation, and every assertion Monica made about him was demonstrably true. His lawyer likely recognized the futility of the lawsuit, but filed it nonetheless, perhaps hoping to intimidate her or deplete her financial resources. Neither outcome materialized. Instead, it further damaged Palmer's standing. 3 years after the incident, Monica ran for a position on her state's Supreme Court. During her campaign, she spoke candidly about her experience at the airport. She presented it as an example of why the judiciary required judges who understood injustice through lived experience, rather than solely through legal theory. She secured the election by a substantial margin. She became Justice Freeman, one of 9 individuals entrusted with the authority to interpret the law for millions of citizens. Meanwhile, Palmer's trajectory moved in the opposite direction. He moved from one job to another, lacking stability. He endeavored to remain out of the public spotlight, but the internet's memory is unforgiving. His name remained indelibly linked to the airport video. Prospective employers would always be able to access this information. His children faced bullying at school due to their father's actions. His marriage dissolved under the immense stress. While these were not outcomes Monica actively wished upon him, they were the natural repercussions of his decisions. The airport installed a memorial in the terminal where Monica had been confronted. It was less a memorial and more a plaque, acknowledging the incident and pledging the airport's commitment to treating all travelers with dignity and respect. Some perceived this gesture as performative. It may have been. However, it also served as a daily reminder to thousands of travelers passing through that racial profiling was a reality, it was wrong, and it would not be tolerated. Would you have acted as Monica did, or would you have simply overlooked it and moved on? 5 years following the incident, Monica granted an interview to a national magazine. When asked if she had forgiven Officer Palmer, she described forgiveness as complex. She asserted that she harbored no hatred for him and did not spend her time contemplating him, yet she felt no obligation to absolve him of accountability for his actions towards her and countless others. She expressed hope that he had derived lessons from the experience and evolved into a better person, but clarified that this was not her primary concern. Her focus was on ensuring such an event would not befall the next individual. When questioned about the worth of the lawsuit and its ensuing events, she unequivocally stated that it was absolutely worthwhile. This was not due to the financial compensation, the majority of which she had donated to the legal fund and various civil rights organizations. Rather, it was because standing up to injustice is perpetually valuable, even when arduous, even when exhausting, and even when advised to simply let it pass. She was then asked for advice for others who experience racial profiling or police misconduct. She advised meticulously documenting everything, recording events if it could be done safely. She recommended obtaining witness names and contact details, and writing down every detail while it was still fresh. She urged filing complaints through every available avenue. While acknowledging that the system might not be perfect, she stressed that this should not deter one from attempting to utilize it. She also advised seeking out capable lawyers who believed in the cause championed. Finally, she reminded them that their struggle was not solely for themselves, but for all who would follow. The airport where the entire episode unfolded has undergone changes, albeit gradual ones. Officers exhibit greater caution. Complaints are treated with increased seriousness. The prevailing culture has shifted, influenced by federal oversight and the apprehension of further costly litigation. It is not a perfect environment, as no place truly is, but it represents an improvement from its previous state. This transformation was catalyzed by a single woman's refusal to accept treatment that diminished her humanity. Monica continues to travel frequently for her work on the Supreme Court. She still navigates airports. Occasionally, she encounters security officers who recognize her. Most avert their gaze swiftly, appearing embarrassed. A few approach her to offer apologies on behalf of their profession. She accepts these apologies with grace, acknowledging that one decent officer does not rectify systemic issues. And sometimes, as she walks through an airport terminal, she observes a young black woman or man being singled out for additional screening. When circumstances permit and it seems appropriate, she pauses. She observes. She makes the officers aware that their actions are being noted, and should the situation appear amiss, she does not hesitate to pose questions or retrieve her phone. She understands from her own experience the profound impact that a witness, a person who cares, someone unwilling to simply disregard an injustice, can have. Officer Greg Palmer made a deliberate choice that Wednesday morning at 6:47 a.m. He perceived a successful black woman and decided she needed to be put in her place. He believed he possessed the power, and she had none. He assumed he could humiliate her and proceed with his day without consequence, much like he had done to numerous others. He was mistaken. That error cost him everything, while imparting a lesson that resonated far beyond that single airport terminal. Justice is not always immediate, nor is it always guaranteed. But occasionally, when courageous individuals champion its cause, justice prevails. And this is precisely what transpired here. Thank you for staying with this narrative until its conclusion. If you have gained something from this, or it has prompted you to reconsider any perspective, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember to subscribe for additional stories of this nature.